Hey, good morning. Welcome to Open Mics with Dr. Stites. It's Wednesday, October 26th. I'm Dr. Steve Stites, Chief Medical Officer here at the University of Kansas Health System. Here's a question for you. Ever wonder how some people can keep their slim figures no matter what they eat, while others seem to pack on the pounds by just looking at food? That's one of the mysteries of obesity. We have three experts today. They're going to help us unravel that. Joining us here in the Dolph Simons Family Studio are Dr. Steve Herman with the Division of Physical Activity and Weight Management, and Dr. Steve Weinman, professor in the Department of Internal Medicine, the Division of GI and Hepatology. Watch out, it's the attack of the Steves today. Another expert who will be going to be joining us today is Dr. John Tifo. John is a professor in molecular and integrative physiology and professor in endocrinology, metabolism, and genetics. This is a uniquely qualified group because they spend their lives studying weight management. And today we have a special guest, Georgia Dittmeyer, a nurse and a woman who has agreed to share with us her struggles in weight loss. Thank you, Georgia. I'm glad your name's not Steve, and welcome to all. All right, questions from our viewers are an important part of this program, and we want to hear from you. Get yours sent in right now into YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and the Medical News Network, and find links to those right here on your screen. Jill Chadwick will join us a little later with those questions. First, a few things you need to know. KU Medical Center has been awarded a $12 million, guys, that's a really big number in the research world, just to say. We call it an RBD, really big deal. A $12 million 5-year grant from the National Institute of Health to establish a new research center to study human obesity and obesity-related disease. The grant will establish the Kansas Center for Metabolism and Obesity Research, otherwise known as KC-MORE. It will be a hub for researchers studying obesity prevention and treatment. The goal is to set the stage for KU Med to become a national leader in obesity, metabolism, and obesity-related disease research, which frankly it already is, but this will really take it to a different frontier. Georgia, I want to start with you. You are 71 years old, and you had been trying for a long time to shed some extra pounds. But since you started at the KU Med Center's weight loss clinic in February, you've been able to finally lose a significant amount of weight. What didn't work before? And Georgia, what was the difference this time? And good morning, sorry.
Good morning. I've weighed the same thing for about 12, 15 years. I tried commercial products like Weight Watchers. I tried calorie counting. I tried macronutrients. I tried low carb. And I think the reason it was unusual is that I was on it by myself. I tried to find the beginning, the middle, and the end by myself, and I knew I was under control. And when I joined the weight group at KU, it was a group effort and not just a therapy group, but it was educational, it was medical data, it was the reason why. And that was important to me. Why am I not losing weight? Why do I need to exercise? And why do I need to continue down the pathway? The other big thing was it was so much simpler, so much simpler. The decision making was gone. The tracking was easy and the directions were simple and they were easy to follow. And it was successful, and that was reinforcing.
Wow, that's a pretty big deal. We're going to let you share some numbers with us in a moment, but really help tell your story. But I want to turn for just a moment to our docs. Dr. Weinman, congratulations on this grant. How common is Georgia's story?
Well, thanks, Steve. I really appreciate the chance to help talk a little bit about some of our efforts. Most people who participate in these weight loss programs will lose weight. And there are a lot of data from national studies that something like half of people who make weight loss attempts will lose about 5% of their body weight, and is up to maybe 20% will lose about 10%. Now the numbers for the weight management clinic here at KUMC are actually a little bit higher than that, and so there's really a good chance of losing weight. Now Georgia, I didn't hear exactly the numbers of exactly how much weight she lost, but the typical weight loss that people can expect as a reasonable goal, not a guarantee, but a reasonable goal is about 10% of your body weight. Some people will lose more, and some people will lose less. But those are kind of the typical experiences that people have.
So is Georgia the type of patient you were thinking of in deciding to help to establish the center or do this grant application? Who are you thinking about?
Oh, George is exactly that. And I'll tell you, the three of us, the three investigators that came together to put together this grant have sort of different perspectives. So Dr. Joe Donnelly, who is not here today and who works with Dr. Herman, are specialists in human weight loss, and they run this weight management clinic. They do lots of research on the best way to get people to lose weight. Dr. Tifo is a specialist on energy balance and how changes across your lifetime in the efficiency with which you use calories lead to weight loss. And my expertise is in the disease processes that are caused by obesity, in particular fatty liver disease, and how it affects people's lives. So we are the grant is trying to cover this whole spectrum, from people who are more or less healthy but need to lose weight to remain healthy, people who have obesity-related diseases, and then the really deep, basic biological science processes that are regulating things like energy metabolism, satiety, desire to eat, and those things that we really don't understand how to help influence for our patients. So I would say all of the above is my answer.
So that's a big answer. So we're going to try and pull that apart in just a minute. But your grant is part of the NIH Centers of Biomedical Research Excellence, also known as, COBRA, COBRI. I'm not really a strong research guy, so I can't really say the word right, but we're just going to say COBRA for now. What is unique about this COBRA Center that differentiates it from all the other different kinds of scientific endeavors?
Well, thanks for asking. This is, I think, a very unusual and unique scientific support mechanism from the NIH. So the NIH does a lot of supportive research. It supports individual research grants, but it also supports research centers where the funds from the NIH are building core facilities and instrumentation and things that are serving many investigators. The special thing about the COBRA is that it is targeting young investigators and providing them resources, mentoring, and career development services, in addition to creating this center where many different people can interact. And I'd like to make a point of how important this is. I think one of the observations that have been made throughout human history is that creativity and innovative ideas come more easily from people who are young than people who are old. And nurture.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. You just X'd me out here.
Well, I'm in the same situation, Steve. But honestly, there is no question from every creative discipline in humans that young people inject some novelness and creativity that wouldn't happen without this infusion of young people. And unfortunately, in science, the most creative people may be the ones who have the most difficulty getting funding. They haven't established a reputation yet. They, NIH funding tends to be conservative and likes to give money to things that they know are going to work. And young people are people you take a risk on. So we have funds that we can provide through this COBRA mechanism to really outstanding, highly creative young investigators. We give them these 3 years of support. We launch their career. We provide them the sort of expertise and the mentoring of an older and more experienced cadre of investigators. And we really build in place new investigators here at KU that will grow our enterprise and make it a more important and a more likely to find cures for obesity.
You know what I think? I think that's an ad for coming to KU and doing research, or to any really academic medical center and places that's going to do a lot and help change the world, which, Lord, we need a little bit of change. So Dr. Tifo, what sort of scientific infrastructure has been put in place and is going to be developed because of this grant?
Yeah, so in modern research, it's really hard for every individual lab to have all of the tools and resources and knowledge to do certain procedures themselves. And so what research cores are designed to do is they provide an infrastructure that can support investigators. And so in this COBRA grant, we have three primary cores. One core is to help people doing clinical research that want to do exercise interventions or nutrition interventions, or maybe assess energy balance by measuring food intake and energy expenditure in free living individuals. Another core basically does almost the exact same thing in animal models. A lot of us study how obesity develops and how obesity-induced chronic diseases develop in rodent models. And so we can also do exercise interventions, nutrition interventions, or induce pathology with certain diets, and then measure energy expenditure and energy intake in those rodent models. And then the third core is really designed to help acquire human samples so that we can look at cellular and molecular pathways that are influenced by obesity, and also to help investigators who maybe don't have a regular biochemistry or molecular lab collect that data, do the biostats and the bioinformatics, and get the data in a way that's ready to be published. And so between those three cores, there's a lot of strengths that will really move obesity and metabolism research forward here at KU Med.
Yeah, that is cool. One quick question for you there, Dr. Tifo. Is it Cobra or Cobri? How do you say it?
I say Cobra, but it's probably
Excellent.
should be Cobri.
I'm going to say Cobra then. All right, well, how will Casey Moore and Cobra change the way that the investigators get to relate and work with each other?
I think this is a unique opportunity, like they've described. Even someone like myself coming in a little bit newer this year, having access to expertise that normally I wouldn't have the opportunity to work with. The instrumentation that they have allows us to do things in a really unique way here, where we can work forward from animal models and cellular pathways and translate that information into human trials. And we can also take human trials and understand maybe what's happening, what's challenging, and then work backwards and try to understand what's driving the success or the variability in the responses that we see. And that's just not possible in most places.
So are you one of those young guys who's still got some originality and creativity left that Wyman and I don't have? Is that what I'm hearing?
I hope so.
Well, good luck with that. So now, what kind of, or talk to us a little bit about the importance of studying metabolism and obesity right now. And I think that's kind of that's a softball question, but I want to go with that for a minute.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of patients out there. There's a lot of people in the community that maybe have heard just it's as easy as eating less and exercising more. And I think the researchers and the physicians here at the medical center understand that it's much more complex than that. That there's genetics, there's metabolism at play, there's human and societal factors, there's psychology and stress and everything that goes with it, everything that George has experienced. And I think when people understand that there are really, really talented researchers trying to work together to crack the code and help more people improve their health with weight loss or just improve their health in general, I think it should be comforting and reinforcing that this really is trying to be a center that could be lifted up across the country as doing obesity research and obesity treatment the right way.
Yeah, it is just remarkable. Okay, so what are some of the diseases caused by obesity, guys? Just take it, I think.
I can take that.
You bet. Oh, right.
Oh, well, sadly, there are a lot of diseases caused by obesity. So in my, first of all, the most clearly obesity-centered phenomenon is what's called the metabolic syndrome, which includes diabetes, high blood pressure, elevated blood lipids like cholesterol that can cause heart disease and vascular disease, and fatty liver disease. And every one of these things can be mild, but can have very severe consequences for people. And so that's kind of the core, but then it balloons out from that. Obesity is related to a number of cancers. There are very strong relationships between obesity and esophageal cancer, colon cancer, breast cancer, pancreatic cancer, and a number of other ones as well. And of course, this is Dr. Herman's expertise. Obesity causes a lot of orthopedic problems, and a lot of the disability associated with obesity is related to stress and inflammation of hips and knees, And these can be very, very serious problems that many people have to suffer with. So we think that all of these problems are approachable, but they need a holistic, coordinated approach, and we can talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah, that'll be great. Georgia, let's turn to you. You've kept track of your numbers throughout the weight loss journey. Now, we have a graphic that shows the essentially steady flat line, and then we see some tiny dips. Were you losing weight then and kind of gaining it back? What does that reflect when we see those kind of little blips?
Those are taken from my Fitbit, and I have data way back when. And so I took from 2014 to Monday, and the dips do show, and there isn't a grid that on the left-hand side. So this is about 195 to 200. The dip that you see 3/4 the way over is probably 188. That's the best I ever did on my own. And they do show that I tried and didn't do so well. And it wasn't that I felt like a failure, it's just I got bored, or and it wasn't that I had reward eating or anything. It's just over time it would sneak back up. So this is probably maybe 4 months in there, and then it would go right back to where I was, at 199 to 200 for years.
So what changed at the Weight Loss Center? What do they do to help you make this significant drop in weight of 37 pounds and keeping it off?
One thing that happened before this, and the Weight Center helped me understand this, I went to the internal medicine department at KU from another health system. I transferred over to KU, and they reviewed my records, and I knew that I had the metabolic syndrome, but I didn't know I had a fatty liver. And I'd had a cardiac calcium score or a scan, and the internal medicine doctor, Dr. Richardson, said, "Georgia, did you know you had fatty liver?" I said, No, I have metabolic syndrome. She said, "No, you have a really bad fatty liver." And she said, "I think it's fibrotic." And so they referred me to the liver clinic, which was kind of a shock. And so from there, I started through the process at KU of help me lose weight. And we tried a nutritionist, we tried the metabolic diet or the Mediterranean diet, and I called Dr. Richardson back and said, I'm just not successful. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. She said, "Well, try the weight loss clinic." So when I got there, the first thing Kate said was, "A lot of people are here because they've had a medical scare. And you've got to make a decision on how committed you are to it." And the liver problems, and I don't drink, I hadn't eaten red meat, I swim every day. So I was like, how did this happen? How did this happen? Because I'm active and I watch what I eat. How did this happen? It didn't correlate at all. So I was in a position where it was like, this is it. Everything you've tried didn't work. So how did it change at KU? It was the group and the suggestions from the other patients, and you were committed for 26 weeks, but I need to tell the audience I did it from Monday to Monday, because our group meetings were on Monday, and we had weigh-in on Monday, and we had to fess up what we ate. I mean, if you ate a hot dog, you fessed up. I ate a hot dog. And there wasn't any guilt with it, and it was just, I lived from Monday to Monday and tried to lose weight each week. I didn't look at the long haul, I just looked Monday to Monday, and the support group and the education.
That's a big deal. So you must have invested a lot of time and effort. But what is it what's the diet? What's the secret diet, guys? I'm going to ask to John, Steve here, or no, Steve, John. What's the secret diet here?
Yeah, you know, in this situation, a lot of times there's not a secret diet. It's sort of wrapping patients like Georgia with a care team that's supportive. The programs that are built on the evidence that we know is effective. And what a lot of that starts with is some initial structure to help simplify things, because we know that obesity is a very, very complex disease. So that structure early on can give people some success and allow them to practice behaviors, learn new knowledge and tools over time. And then that structure starts to go away, and they are more confident in the skills that they've been practicing and building. And then, like Georgia said, sometimes it's difficult to maintain motivation on your own. So we use different behavioral theories to support that, where sometimes the motivation might come from someone like myself and help Georgia, and other times Georgia's pulling it out of other people in the group. And so we can leverage those strategies to be successful early on, reinforcing the success and gaining motivation, and then maintaining it long term, like George's.
So to be clear then, there's not a secret pill you guys are hiding that you give and people lose weight. Is that what I'm hearing? There's no secret pill? The secret pill is your own commitment?
Well, there is medication-assisted weight loss, and there have been major improvements in that area, and there's some new drugs that have come out recently. That's one of the really strong points of the weight management clinic, in that the physicians who supervise the weight loss are in a good position to decide whether you are a candidate for medication-assisted weight loss, which of the available medications might be the best fit for you, and that can depend on what other medical issues you have and other things. And so it's an important component. It's not the answer by itself. It's not the magic pill you're hoping for, Steve, but it can be an important component of a weight loss, of a coordinated weight loss program.
All right, so maybe this $12 million COBRA grant, or COBRA grant. Okay, so Steve, just real quickly, we didn't do this earlier, but Georgia mentioned a fatty liver, and you're a transplant liver doctor as well. What is a fatty liver? Tell us what that means.
Okay, well, the way I like to think of it is that one of the liver's main jobs is to process nutrients. Everything you eat, as it's absorbed from the intestines, first gets processed by the liver before it's released into the rest of the body. And it's normal for the liver to accumulate some fat in it after a meal. This happens to everyone. But under normal conditions, the fat doesn't last that long in the liver, and the liver processes it and it delivers it to the rest of the body in a form that can be easily utilized. In people who have fatty liver disease, this process of the fat entering the liver and then being distributed to the body is disrupted, and a lot of fat accumulates inside the liver. Some people, maybe as many as 80% of people with fatty liver disease, the fat just sits there. It doesn't cause major problems in the liver, but it's certainly abnormal. But in about 20 or 25% of people who have fatty liver, the fat is triggering an injury, inflammation process in the liver. And this is what we call steatohepatitis, or just fatty inflammation of the liver. And people who have this steatohepatitis have these cycles of injury and healing, and it leads to scar formation in the liver. And eventually, severe scarring of the liver is what we call cirrhosis of the liver. And patients who develop cirrhosis start developing real problems with the way their liver is functioning. They can develop liver failure and other consequences, and as I think people are well aware, cirrhosis is something that can be fatal in many cases. So our goal is to prevent this fatty liver from happening. If the fatty liver is happening, to prevent it from doing liver damage, and reversing it. And the thing that reverses it the best is weight loss. And people who lose 10% of their body weight certainly usually have a reversal of their fatty liver disease. So it's an encouraging, there's an opportunity for this to reverse, but we have to watch it closely, and we need better treatments for it, because right now we don't have any really proven drug therapies for fatty liver disease. It's all about weight loss.
So Georgia,
Can I add to that?
Oh, please, go ahead.
Yeah, so my lab really focuses on the role of exercise and physical activity for a risk for fatty liver. And I just want to highlight that there is good evidence that you can be at a higher body weight and protect yourself from fatty liver with regular exercise and physical activity. I know that that wasn't Georgia's experience, but the data is pretty clear that can be true. And I kind of want to, think about, make individuals think about, we all have different body shapes, and we're all not going to be super lean individuals that are on the covers of magazines. And so the health behaviors that you have at any body weight can improve your health at that body weight. But for some people, weight loss is necessary to get those risk factors down. And I also want to highlight that being active and regular exercise also helps to prevent weight gain and prevent these things from occurring. So I don't want to put too much emphasis on weight, even though that is obviously the focus of our COBRA grant.
Yeah,
John, can I interrupt for a minute? I just need to reinforce that, because tracking the way we did and I just finished 26 weeks in the weight clinic and a 12-week extension. And I'm a numbers person, and I like gathering data. The weeks that my steps would drop below 10,000, or the weeks that because I still work, that I couldn't get my lap swimming in or I couldn't do water aerobics, my weight would not go down. There was a direct correlation. Now, I might only have lost a half a pound or a pound the week before, but if I didn't exercise, I lost nothing. So
That's
that I
interesting.
really want to reinforce that. And it wasn't hard exercise. I mean, they didn't ask you to go out and lift weights or anything. It was just moderate exercise on a continuous basis. But if I dropped it, I saw no weight loss. None.
And Georgia, when you said 10,000 steps, was that for the entire week or per day? Average per day?
Per day.
Yeah, so it's a lot of
And-
things like
and-
walking.
And
So-
I didn't always make it because, I was busy and stuff, but I tried to at least do 8,000, and they encouraged us to increase it 10%, every week. I was not able to do 10,000 because I was doing an hour of swimming. But if I stopped and dropped down to 6,000, I wouldn't lose weight.
And you found that magic number, which I think is an important point. Hey, your next graphic kind of has a constant slide down in weight loss. That's got to feel good.
It does. And on those days you see a little peak, the days you see a little peak were discouraging, but that's where the group would come in and say, wait, it isn't going to be linear. You have ups and you have downs. And about the middle of the graph, you see just this straight line. I want everyone to know I was out of the country for 3 weeks, drank no alcohol because of the liver issue. I made sure I ate vegetables first, then protein, and I treated fruits as my dessert. And so I had no ability to weigh myself, and I had no ability to chart. And that's the flatness. And I came back and I gained half a pound. So for me, the behavior mod that I learned was just priceless. It was priceless. It was good to see this. It takes a long time. I told everybody in the group, losing weight goes about as fast as growing hair. It's terrible.
Or for some of us, that could be a challenge, Steve Wyman. We may not grow it. All right, so I understand there's been a big change in your body mass index since you've lost those 37 pounds. And body mass index is a relationship to height and weight. So we've got another graphic that shows us that. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Your BMI indicates whether you're at high risk and I hate to say this, but they go morbidly obese. I didn't think I was morbidly obese. I just thought I was plump. But as the body mass index goes down and the weight goes down by 10%, then your numbers of your cholesterol and your glucose, all those things tend to improve at a 10% weight loss. So the BMI going down puts you at, it's an indicator, not a full indicator, because you can be a weightlifter and have a very lean body mass, but yet still have a lot of weight. So you have to kind of correlate the two. But it's an indicator that you're at less risk for some of the diseases of obesity that have been described previously. So I didn't use BMI as my tracking point, though.
Right. Well, for all the
I
reasons
did
you
keep
mentioned,
track of
it's
it.
not. Yeah, it's the other things. So, and Georgia, do you have a weight goal?
Well, I never entered the weight clinic for to get, quote, skinny or be a certain size. I entered it to get my liver enzymes down and to get the inflammation in my liver down. And when I saw the liver group, I'm sorry, maybe it was April. I'd already lost 30 pounds at that point, and they said, please lose 10 to 15 more pounds. So my weight goal is based on what the liver clinic said, and they did a scan at that point, and I was still, despite the weight loss, still 40% fat in my liver. So I guess I'm going to try and get down to 150, not because of the pounds, but because of the liver.
Yeah. Well, I hope that liver thing improves. I bet it does. I know it does help a lot of folks when they can do that. So docs, and I'm going to just say it, Steve John, because it's cool to say that. If somebody is interested in taking part in your weight loss research of the program, what do they need to do? Okay, Steve.
To Steve.
Yeah. So I work with our weight management clinic, and like Steve had mentioned, we really have a pretty diverse care team where patients can come in, they can visit with a physician, dive into their unique medical history and understand what programs we're offering. We also have a lot of clinical trials going on that some of them are with liver patients and the weight management clinic and diabetes center and other places. And so a lot of times there's those types of programs that we can put people in. But if someone's interested, there's an email, it's weightloss@KUMC. That can get people connected. And then from there, we have different patient navigators that can help patients like Georgia and others find the right fit. And I think the last thing I just, again, really want to reinforce what John said and Georgia said, that while this is a center for obesity and a lot of focus on weight loss, there are numerous health benefits of the health behaviors that Georgia's practicing, that John mentioned in exercise, that benefit your health whether or not you lose weight. And that's something else that we talk about in some of our programming, is that there's other markers of health and other markers of progress. It's not just the scale. And that's really important for people to understand, that we can find ways to improve health and find ways for you to scoreboard and measure success in new ways.
What's interesting with your weight loss centers, it sounds like the secret sauce here is not any one thing. It's really a commitment by the patient, wrapping around with lots of care services to help reinforce, and whether it's a group or whatever it may take to help you understand that. So the motivation of the patient, the secrets, the wraparound care, exercise, and then the right approach to a healthy, balanced diet. It's not a special secret diet. It's the right approach to a healthy, balanced diet. Is that a fair summation?
That's fair.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to check out here. We're going to flip gears for a minute. We're going to talk to Hawkeye about COVID in the world, and then in the United States and at KU, and then we're going to kind of come back to some other questions. So, Hawk?
Well, I want coffee in my diet. I know that's a whole other issue.
It's the question is how much cream is in that coffee, brother.
Coffee is very good for liver.
Yeah, good. Just coffee straight. So, Steve, unfortunately the cases since last week have gone up. Our acute cases in the hospital, 31 active infections, 5 in the ICU, 2 on the ventilator, 23 in that recovery period. Still, cases around the U.S. have really kind of plateaued over the last week or two. Same with hospitalizations. Don't have a good reason why we have seen such a significant increase. And we have said this before, we're only testing people with symptoms.
We probably have 70 or 80. I bet we have a lot more patients.
They're more
in the
here,
yeah.
Because of COVID-related problems, not just with COVID. So.
Yeah, and I think one of the things to point out is that the numbers have kind of doubled since last week. When we got down to 10 days ago, we got down to 15 or 16, and now we're up at 31 acutes, and so not the right trend, honestly, and one that's a little disconcerting to me. Hey, check out this data. This is from around the world. We have a graph, and it shows demonstrating, well, first of all, the hotspot graph, but then this graph, this table. And it shows the SARS-CoV-2 sequences by variant in different parts of the world. And if you look at the United States, what we've seen is that BA.5 was up around 90-95% of cases, down to 80%. And there's another one, this BA.4, which is a sliver, but also BA.275 and the newest strain, BQ1. And the point being that these are each about 8 or 9% of cases. And so as you look at that, we're starting to see the rise of different variants. If you look at other areas of the world, those variants have pushed up even higher. And we expect those variants to come through. They appear to be, Hawkeye, that they are a little more evasive of immune defense, but hopefully not causing more severe illness. You've talked a lot about T cells, so I believe that that's probably going to be an important part of it. Vaccination still helps.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. I think first of all, there's not enough sequencing being done. I think we still need to collect more and more data to have even more accurate picture of what's going on. But just like you said, I think we have to expect, with the specificity of our antibodies for really specific areas on that spike protein, it's not going to be surprising that we have these changes and that evasion and that antibody immunity. But like we said, and we have said before, the T cells are vitally important. We know that those areas that the T cells recognize are fairly conserved, 80% or more throughout all the variants. So hopefully that stays. The other thing is, because of the specificity of those antibodies, we haven't really talked about this too much, but those monoclonal antibodies that we use for treatment, as well as Evusheld, may not look to be as effective against a certain number of these variants, but we still do have Paxlovid, which is still active. We haven't identified any significant mutations or resistance in the community. We also have Remdesivir if available as well. So we certainly are keeping an eye on it. NIH is keeping an eye on it, and if we are unable to use Evusheld as that protective measure, but also antibodies for that treatment, we'll certainly let you know.
So that'll be really important. But it does make me a little nervous. And Hawk, are you seeing some more influenza here at KU?
I was just going to bring that up. I was looking, Melanie McCulligan, one of our infection prevention nurses, does our weekly influenza and RSV cases here on the Kansas City campus of the health system. And we are seeing an increase in the number of total positives, so both in the ambulatory, the outpatient setting, and in the inpatient. But Steve, unfortunately, have seen an increase in the hospitalized cases for influenza as well. RSV is still kind of ticking up also. Most of those are probably pediatrics. We're trying to get an age breakdown, but yes, we are seeing an increase in those cases.
And we know that children's hospitals around the area, including Children's Mercy, has had a fairly significant bump in RSV as well as parainfluenza and other viral illnesses. So I just think we have to be really cognizant. The winter could be difficult. We had hoped, when I think I had expressed hope, like Mr. Rose-colored glasses here, had expressed some hope that, man, maybe the winter will be okay. But I think what we're seeing instead is a lot of RSV early.
Yeah.
This is very early for RSV, so it's pushing hard. Influenza, it's here early, and pushing hard, much worse than the last few years. And the COVID variants, at a time when hospitals are full, at a time when Dr. Watson, who is on with that his app that looks at the ability for rural hospitals to transfer patients, demonstrates we're nowhere near back to normal. We never have since the peak last January. And we have a lot of people who are out, EMS workers, et cetera. I think we're setting up for a challenging winter. We'll be in touch. We'll stay tuned. But if you get any message out of this, please get your influenza and your COVID vaccination.
Because you need that 10 days to 2 weeks really to build that immunity, especially against influenza, because we know those cases are increasing.
All right. Well, let's turn over and see if there's any reporter questions or, more importantly, our viewer questions today. Jill, how are we doing out there?
We're doing great. Your conversation about COVID has sparked a few questions, but we have a lot of questions for our other doctors. So let's get the COVID out of the way and then we'll move back on topic. Lori wants to know, I got my bivalent booster in mid-September, my 5th vaccination. When would my next booster be recommended? And she adds her age. I'm 63.
That's a great question, Hawk. I think the CDC was hoping to move toward annual vaccinations based on some stuff they talked about at the bivalent, but a lot of that will be depending, I think, on the status of the pandemic or endemic.
Yeah, I agree. If you had that dose and it was in September and it was the bivalent, you should be good at least for the year. We'll see what recommendations come down, but hopefully you're going to have really that highest level of immunity at least through this winter now.
And Susan asks, what percentage of COVID cases in our hospital are transfers?
Oh, I don't know that number off the top of my head. We're not taking a lot of transfers. We're so full right now. So the better question might be what percentage requests do we have? But we don't get to take all of the transfers we want because of the census today.
Yeah, and we were trying to get a breakdown of our COVID patients. It is definitely much harder with 30 compared to 17. Trying to just get a breakdown of the information about vaccination status, age, transfer, things like that. So we don't have that at this point in time, but I think the question was about transfers, and I agree with you, Steve, yeah.
Okay, I'm going to stay with Pat Rose as we segue back to our other physicians. Does a person have to want to lose weight to do your programs? What if we just want to be healthy and a person is concerned about where they are with their liver and other health markers? I think these are people hearing Georgia's story and sitting and going, I wonder if my liver's fatty.
All right, guys, who's going to take? What are the entry criteria for your program? What are they?
Steve,
Yeah, I think those questions are usually best started with your primary care provider, or if you're seeing a specialty physician or liver clinic, and they can really help navigate what might be the best fit for you, if there are medications available, if there is programming available. But there is a way, like I mentioned, if you email that email or give us a phone call, you can self-refer into some of the programs and we can understand if it's a right fit or if we need to go back and get a primary care referral into the program. And then, just like Georgia, there's a lot of people that will join our programs or join our clinic that have goals outside of weight loss, that they might want to improve some health metrics, they might want to improve some other things. And if weight loss happens, that's great. If not, that's great, as long as we're making progress in those areas that they really want.
Yeah, I'd like to just also comment. So all weight is not the same. the fat that's present sort of in your abdomen, what's called visceral fat, seems to be what correlates with diabetes and fatty liver and metabolic syndrome. And you can convert from an overweight person who's unhealthy to an overweight person who is healthy through exercise and possibly loss of some of this visceral fat. So that's why BMI is not always the best measure of whether you're healthy related to your weight, and many people feel that waist circumference is an even better measure than BMI. But in the world of fatty liver, I'm sorry to tell you that improvements in fatty liver seem to be correlated very well with weight loss. And people who do not lose weight tend not to improve their fatty liver. And I'm hoping that maybe that won't be the case, because I think it's very important to decide what we're talking about. Like, why are we so concerned about obesity? We want people to be healthier. We don't want to put labels on people and stigmatize them. We don't want to penalize people for their genetics or other things, but we feel that everyone can be healthier. And that's really the goal. So we're trying to identify people who have health risks, particularly those with visceral fat that's causing inflammation and organ injury, and see what we can do to help them.
Isaac wants to know, do exercise machines help? Like if I do 1,000,000 crunches to reduce my tummy, is that going to help?
Yeah, I mean, the flaw in that logic is that exercise crunches don't really reduce your body fat that much, right? It's a whole combined form of exercise.
Yep. It's difficult to spot reduce and target even that visceral fat. So really a well-balanced exercise program would include, trying to get up to 150 minutes of moderate intensity activity, which would be walking, brisk walking, like George is doing, but then also working in a couple of days of resistance training. So that could be some exercise bands, it could be some machines at the gym, or it could be some body weight exercises that you're doing at home. So really diversifying that is going to give you the best broad range of support in improving your health, and then targeting a little bit of weight loss as well.
And John and Steve, talk about this impact of alcohol for just a minute, because I think that is a big part of both fatty liver, weight gain, weight management, etc. An old-fashioned at night tastes great, but you may pay for that.
Yeah, I can comment on that a little bit. There's a lot of confusion on the relationship between alcohol and weight-related fatty liver. And I think the current thinking is that these two processes can sort of synergistically damage the liver together, and it's important to avoid alcohol. There were sort of observational studies in the past that suggested that possibly low levels of alcohol consumption might be beneficial to people with fatty liver disease, and I think most of that's been debunked, and that was really observational studies that people who drank a very limited amount may have had other things different about them than people who either didn't drink or drank heavily. And so I do think that we currently have good evidence that both alcohol and obesity-related fatty liver can make each other worse, and we strongly recommend that people who have fatty liver of any cause not drink alcohol.
Jill?
Yes. Ying Lang said he heard you discuss that obesity can be a risk factor for cancer. He wants to know specifically, is it a risk factor for pancreatic cancer? We've had a couple of people ask about that.
Okay.
I can take that. Yes. There's a simple answer for that. Pancreatic cancer is not the most strongly obesity-related cancer. I think one of the most strongly related ones is adenocarcinoma of the esophagus, which is a particular kind of esophageal cancer, followed by breast cancer, colon cancer, and pancreatic cancer is down there. There is a risk. It's not as high as some of those other cancers.
Okay, and Carol, she has a lot of big words in her question, but I'm going to say it because I think I know what she's asking. She wants to ask the doctors, and this may involve Dr. Hawkeye too. People ask the doctors to comment on the possible role of mold toxicity on etiology and any treatments for obesity, but she also is asking about Lyme disease and that toxicity component, wondering how many weight problems might be related to Lyme disease.
Well, let's start with the Lyme disease. We'll probably unpack that. The question is, there's a whole lot more obesity than there is Lyme disease.
Yeah, and certainly around here. Again, we don't have too much Lyme in the Kansas, Missouri area. We know the ticks are here, but the actual diagnosis of the disease, there are other tick-borne diseases that are diagnosed much more, such as ehrlichiosis and Rocky Mountain spotted fever. I don't know that there's any correlation between weight and those types of things. And of course, you know, the chronic Lyme is a whole issue unto itself. There's no evidence of active infection for that. It certainly could be a post-Lyme syndrome that people may have, or some sort of autoimmunity, but I'm not aware of any correlation with obesity or anything like that.
And mold, I think, is on the rise in the country, but experts, I'm not hearing anything about mold and diabetes or fat or obesity.
Yeah, I'll see. Maybe John
John,
has
have
a
you heard
comment
anything
on
around that one? Oh, unmute yourself, John.
I have not heard anything related to that.
You know, I will say, though, that diabetes, however, we haven't really hit on this interaction as much between, we've talked a little bit about metabolic syndrome, but John, talk to us a little bit about the relationship between weight and diabetes.
Sure. So if you look at increasing BMIs as they get larger, the risk for type 2 diabetes goes up pretty dramatically. Around a BMI of 33 to 34 in North America is where the risk for type 2 diabetes goes up. Interestingly, in other countries, India and China, risk for diabetes is at lower BMIs and increases dramatically around a 28 or 30 BMI. So there is no doubt that obesity is a big risk factor for type 2 diabetes. I think around 80 to 85% of people with type 2 diabetes do have obesity. Again, it is another disease that if you can improve your diet, try to maintain your weight, and be more active, you can offset the development of type 2 diabetes. So if you get a kind of a health scare that you've been told you have prediabetes from your primary care physician, lifestyle at that point can really have a big impact on preventing that from developing, even at maintaining the same body weight. But of course, again, as with these other conditions, if you can lose 5 or 10% body weight and have healthier lifestyles, that'll have even a bigger effect on offsetting the development of diabetes. And or once you have type 2 diabetes, then of course it's important to make sure that your HbA1c's stay low so that your risk for cardiovascular disease is avoided.
You bet. Jill.
Okay, we have several and I want to roll right through them. So Jean says, hi Jean, I haven't seen you in a long time. It's fun being back doing questions. What are biosomatics that you referenced earlier? He wants to know what that is.
All right, team. Biosomatic. Steve, John.
I'm afraid my mic went out, so you have to repeat the
What's
question
a biosomatic? There's somebody referenced biosomatic. I'm not sure what that is
It
myself.
means
So.
two bodies, but I don't know
Yeah,
what it's
I'm not sure what it
referring
is
to.
either. I think maybe we probably either mispronounced or misheard, Jill. Let's go to the next.
Okay, a lot of people want to know what is the ballpark cost and time and investment for this, with or without insurance, to take part in the program. Does insurance typically cover this?
All right, medical coverage.
Yeah, that one varies a little bit, and there's also different types of programs. So coming in, the physicians can help navigate what's the best treatment plan, and then we can explore with the insurance company what's covered. So sometimes some of those medications that Steve mentioned, there's new medications that are very, very effective. If those are the right fit, sometimes they're covered, sometimes there's not. We have nutrition counseling with registered dietitians that's generally a covered service, and then we also have the fee-for-service option, which for a 6-month program is about $480. And that includes the group programming, interacting with the health educator on a regular basis, and then for some of our programs we incorporate some meal replacements and prepackaged meals that really help simplify the process early and allow us to get some calorie control, portion control options that help us lose weight while we build skills on including vegetables and fruits throughout our day. And then transition into a full grocery meal program later on.
And
Okay, just a couple of more.
Go ahead, Jill.
Sharon wants to know, and Angela want to know, does fatty liver disease show up in routine blood work, and how do genetics play a role?
Oh, so those are great questions. The answer to the first one, does fatty liver disease show up in routine blood work? The answer is sometimes. So it's not a completely reliable. People who have other characteristics of metabolic syndrome and have elevated liver enzymes very likely have fatty liver, but many people with fatty liver have normal liver enzymes, and it does not show up in blood work. So we see it more often in people who get an ultrasound test for some reason, like they had abdominal pain and they were trying to look at the gallbladder, and then it's noted that they have fatty liver. So those are some of those. And then let's see, what was the other question?
It's genetics, and can you be
genetics.
skinny and have a fatty liver?
This is an area of great progress in research, and a number of gene variants have been very strongly associated with fatty liver disease. There are about 6 of them. The strongest of one is a gene that's related to how lipid droplets are processed in the liver. It's a protein called PMPLA3, and there are variants that a large fraction of the population has that seem to lead to accumulation of fat and worsening of liver disease. And the frequency of the sort of disease-associated variant differs in different populations and really accounts for variability in fatty liver disease in many different groups of people. So but the good news is that if you can identify genetic causes, that maybe you can turn those into drug targets and things that can be treated. So I think there's a lot, right now we don't routinely measure the genetics in people since they don't have any practical implications of how we're going to treat them. But that day may change, and there may be a time where we have very specific genetic related treatments for fatty liver.
Okay, I had to put the phone down. Too many great questions coming in. I will send them to the doctors and ask them if they'll give us an answer.
Well, Jill, I think what it means is we need to bring these guys back soon.
Yeah, one
This is
final
hot.
question as we go
Please.
out. Everybody wants to know, we're entering what we call that slippery slope with Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. Georgia, how are you going to navigate that? Oh, she can't? Oh, sorry. So doctors?
I'll do it. Hey, Georgia, you're looking at the slippery slope now between Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas. Lots of good foods, maybe not as much activity when it gets colder. How are you going to navigate that on your diet and with all the things you're trying to accomplish?
It's pretty easy because after you've been on this for a while, you really don't feel very good if you eat like you used to. So you just start with, you look at what's 3 ounces of turkey and you take a bite of stuffing and you like it and you move on, and you take a bite of pumpkin pie and you move on, and you give yourself a break for a day, and you make sure you walk after you eat. And it's not obsessive. You balance it, and you say, okay, how many calories maybe did I eat in a week? But you don't forsake family and gatherings for your diet. You just do it in moderation, I guess, is the best. And as far as it getting colder outside, we definitely saw that last year in the group. Our steps decreased. So you either go to a gym or go to a mall, or you walk. You have to walk. And I just want to let the people that are, on the phones or on the meeting, the web meeting, this isn't all on your shoulders by yourself. It isn't like you failed. There's all these genetic reasons. There's all these inherited reasons. But you can try and control what you can control. And just try and do a little better. And if your hemoglobin drops, A1C drops, or your glucose drops, that's success. That's success. And you may still have a thick waist, but that's success. And yet that's what helped me, was the medical leadership at the clinic made sure that I had the data points and the blood work that I needed to tell myself I was successful, despite the one bite of turkey and the pumpkin pie.
Reinforcement helps so much, and reinforcement hope. We've said before, faith, hope, science. What a combination that can be in every different disease. Does this mean I can't eat chocolate?
No.
In moderation,
Yeah,
Steve.
Okay, fine. And
Yeah, you gotta
COVID,
live.
did COVID cause everybody to gain weight? Because I think COVID, it made us all eat comfort foods more. And comfort foods are fried, and they're like fried chicken. I hadn't eaten fried chicken in years. I started eating it again during the pandemic. Guys, is that true? Is there a COVID effect?
There is evidence that COVID increased body weight in a lot of U.S. citizens, yes.
Yeah, I think it did. All right. Guys, this has been an outstanding program. First of all, Georgia, you're the best. Our guys here are pretty good too, but we've got to get these people back, and they got to get back soon. Let's get some final thoughts. Dr. Herman, I'm going to start with you, Georgia.
Sure. Final thoughts. Don't give up. Try, and don't think, oh, I hate to exercise. There were people in our group that said, either you get to diet or I get to exercise. I can't do both. So you started off and you were successful at the diet and then added exercise. You don't have to dump all this on yourself at once. Find a primary care physician or an internal medicine person that will work with you. And I have to thank KU because mine was phenomenal. I dropped my BMI, I dropped my weight, my glucose went from 129 down to 91, my hemoglobin A1C went from 6.7 borderline, I wasn't declared a diabetic, and it's down to 5.8. My cholesterol went from 267 to 161 because my internal medicine put me on statins because of my liver. So get somebody that will do the whole picture, and not just put it on you. I couldn't have gotten my cholesterol down by myself. I couldn't have seen the sense of exercise and adding exercise had it not been for the group. Just hang in there. Keep trying and find a doc that'll work with you.
All right. Great wisdom. Dr. Herman.
Yeah, probably two things, like Georgia mentioned, or you all mentioned, come to the holiday season, it can be really challenging. But this is also the time, I think there's a bit of a movement to think about October is the new January, and let's not put off making some small health changes now so that we can gain some momentum through the holidays, or at least maintain maybe better than we have in the past. And then the other thing, if someone out there is struggling, there's teams across the KU Medical Center that are really looking forward to helping people. If you're looking for weight loss or some of the programs, if you reach out to weight loss at KUMC, I know that can be a big step for a lot of people. But when you email, you're going to be talking to people, or phone call, you're going to be talking to people that really care, that want to help you and want to understand how your situation is unique, and then leverage the expertise of the people around the table, around the center to create a care plan just for you.
All right. Thank you. Dr. Tifo.
I guess my big take home would be to not associate your health necessarily only with your body weight, as Georgia had mentioned earlier. Some people will start having healthier behaviors in terms of their diet and their physical activity, and they don't see themselves change in the mirror or on the scale, and then so they quit because of that. And I want to, really strongly emphasize that a healthier diet with fruits and vegetables and more activity will do all kinds of things to make your body healthier at any weight. So we have to do better as a society to separate those things so that we all can live healthier lives.
Thank you. And finally, Doc Hawk. Oh, then Dr. Wyman, then
Okay.
Doc Hawk.
Okay, well, I would like to echo what my colleague said, but also I really want people to understand how complex the mechanisms that regulate eating behavior and energy expenditure and weight loss, and this is not your fault. The one thing I would like people to get away from is this concept that, well, if you wanted to lose weight, you would, and shame and guilt. This is a very complex situation. It is possible to make improvements, but you shouldn't be discouraged, and there are people here to help you. And but this is not something that is about fault or shame or guilt. This is complex human physiology going on here, and I think we misunderstand it to think that weight is under voluntary control.
Excellent point. Dr. Hawkins.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think things are so different now than they were a generation or two or three ago. It's so much more difficult to eat healthy. We know that the economics part is extremely important as well. We always hear stay around the outsides of the grocery store rather than on the inside racks where there's more processed food. But it is a difficult thing, and it takes an active choice to be able to do that. So definitely agree, and just appreciate our guest today, and also want to continue to endorse the fact that really, if you have not been vaccinated yet for influenza, please go get vaccinated today as soon as possible, and of course stay up to date with your COVID-19 booster as well.
All right, Jill, how about what's coming up tomorrow?
I'm going to be back. I will be
Awesome.
taking a medical test live on camera to check my cardio score. You can all watch to see if I pass. I hope you'll come back. A cardio score takes about 15 minutes, and it gives you an immediate baseline to your risk of cardiovascular disease. My husband took it, and he got a great score, and I'm going to try to beat his.
Oh, good. Well, good luck with that.
Dr. Stites, I think that you should share your topic for next Wednesday.
I'm
You've got a
excited.
really exciting guest joining.
It's going to be cool. All right, so I do. Now, we're very excited to have Rear Admiral, who also happens to be the Assistant Surgeon General and the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Science and Medicine, join us from Washington, D.C. He has news of an ongoing research study around long COVID, and they are recruiting study participants. We're going to hear what's rapidly emerging around long COVID. And just remember, folks, you heard it today. Science can be your friend. And we have great scientists here. That combination of your great faith and efforts, hope, and science can help all of us live a little better and live a little longer. Live long and prosper. Make sure to join us next Wednesday. We'll see you then.
I'm Alexis Del Cid on the next All Things Heart.
I was on a minesweeper, and then on the last 2 years, I was on a nuclear sub repair ship.
From enemy attack to a near heart attack, meet the Vietnam veteran and the doctor who saved him decades later, Thursday morning at 10.
Subscribe to our morning medical update and Open Mics with Dr. Stites podcasts. Now, everywhere podcasts are available.